All right, everyone, we're going to talk about rational equations today. So we're going to take what we've learned about simplifying radicals and all of that, and we're going to use it to solve equations. So on the left, I start with the rational equation of m to the 2/3 power equals 4. I need to remove that 2/3 from that exponent. How do I change this 2/3 up here to a 1? That's right, we multiply by its reciprocal. So if I multiply one side by that reciprocal, I must do the other side as well. Not multiply by it, but raise it to that reciprocal. So this becomes m to the 6/6 equals 4 to the 3/2. Well, 6/6 is 1, so I get m equals. Well, what is 4 to the 3/2 power? So without using a calculator, the question becomes, what is the square root of 4? 2. And what's 2 cubed? 8. So the answer is 8. Let's look at our second example over here. How do we undo this square root right here? That's right, we square it. So I'm going to square both sides, so that becomes this squared, and I'm going to have 7 squared. Well, when you square a square root, that undoes the square root. And when I square 9, I get 49. So now I'm just going to solve the equation. I'm going to add 17 to the other side. And so when I add 17, I get I get 66. When I divide by -3, I get -22. All right, let's look at our last slide. We have 2 examples here. Now they're going to get more complicated on us. So I have all this up here. Before I can undo this 1/2, before I can make that 1/2 go away more or less, before I can square it, as you all know, to undo a 1/2 would be a square multiplied by its reciprocal, I have to get rid of anything that's hanging out with it on the same side. So the first thing I need to do is I need to add the 1 to the other side. So I'm going to add 1 over here. Now I still have this -5 hanging out, so I have to divide, because that says -12 times all that stuff. So I'm going to divide by -5 to get a +6. Now I have nothing hanging around outside the parentheses there, so I can square both sides. So that tells me that I'm going to square everything, remember? So this becomes -12 minus 3x equals 6 squared. Or -12 minus 3x equals 36. If I add 12 to the other side, I get 48. If I divide by -3, I get -16 is my answer. All right, let's look at this guy over here. It's a 5th root. It's the same thing. I need to first get rid of all the stuff that's hanging out around it. So I need to get rid of this, -9, and I'm ultimately then going to have to get rid of that -3. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 9 to the other side. Then I'm going to divide by -3. Now, how do I undo a 5th root? Yep, I'm going to take it to the 5th power. So I'm going to take that to everything to the 5th power, which means that knocks out the radical, and then I'm going to have 2 to the 5th. Well, 2 to the 5th is 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. I'm going to subtract 8, and I'm going to divide by -3. That's not so bad. Okay, so that's everything that's on the worksheet. Now let's look at a problem from your homework that you had the night that you got the book assignment, since we're going backwards. So let's look at the square root of 2x plus 6. This would be number 43. So the square root of 2x plus 6 minus, I believe it is x plus, the square root of x plus 1. And that equaled 2. So let's go through what we need to do with this. We're going to get rid of one of the radicals, meaning we're going to put it on the other side of the equation. So I'm going to take the negative one, so the minus one, and I'm going to add this one right here to the other side. So this equals 2 plus the square root of x plus 1. Now, we've talked about how do you undo the radical. In this case, we're going to square those square roots. When I square the square roots, I'm going to write the step out for you. Looks like that. So in the case right here, this and the radical cancel each other out, so I just get 2x plus 6. But remember over here, and we're going to put this over here, we're going to pretend we're on scrap paper, this becomes 2 plus the square root of x plus 1 times 2 plus the square root of x plus 1. Because remember, that 2 up here says write the parenthesis 2 times. So now we're going to FOIL. So that's 4 plus 2 square root of x plus 1 plus 2 square root of x plus 1 plus the square root of 1 x plus 1 times the square root of x plus 1. Now we know that this right here just gets me an x plus 1. We know that this 2 and this 2 added together gets me a 4 square root of x plus 1. And then we have the 4 on the front end. So what can we combine? As I come back over here, this is going to equal, well, I have 4 plus 1 or 5 plus an x plus the 4 square root of x plus 1. So now I'm going to move this guy and this one to the other side of the equal sign. So I'm going to subtract 5 and I'm going to subtract x. So I'm going to end up with x plus 1 equals 4 square root of x plus 1. Just like above, how do I undo this square root right here? Well, I'm going to square everything. So this becomes x plus 1 quantity squared equals 4 square root of x plus 1 squared. When I square this parenthesis over here, just like over here, that means write it down twice and FOIL. So when you do that, that's x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals. When I square this 4 right here, that's 16. When I square this radical symbol, that's just x plus 1. So now I need to distribute, and then I'm going to collect everything over on the left hand side. So I'm going to have x squared minus 14x minus 15 equals 0. I'm going to try to factor it, which is x minus 15, x plus 1 equals 0. I'm going to set each parenthesis, so now we're going to go up here. I'll change color so we see what I did. I'm going to take x minus 15 equal to 0. I'm going to take x plus 1 equal to 0. So x equals 15 and x equals negative 1. But if you read your instructions, it said check for extraneous solutions. So to check for extraneous solutions, you have to plug it back in. So I'm going to take 2 times 15 plus 6, and I'm going to minus the square root of 15 plus 1, and I'm going to see if that equals 2. So this is square root of 36 minus the square root of 16. This is 6 minus 4. Does that equal 2? Yep, 2 equals 2. So this one checks. Now I'm going to go and check the other one. So all right, so here we go. Let's plug in. This time we're plugging in this negative 1, so negative 1 here, and I'll have a negative 1 here. So this becomes negative 2 plus 6 is 4. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. So this is 2. Does 2 equal 2? It sure does. This one also checks. So neither one of those was extraneous. If I did my arithmetic correctly, neither one was extraneous. They both worked out. All right, so that is one of the examples of those 3 really super hard ones from the book assignment. By the way, the book assignment was page 395, 26 to 43. And this was number 43. All right, I wish you guys well, and I'll see you all in class tomorrow.